This might be too far away from me and my voice isn't strong. Shall I be closer?
You can do.
I don't speak that loudly and I don't want to be leaning too... Is that better?
That's perfect.
Is my voice coming over okay there?
It's good for me.
Good.
Thanks, Rob.
Good.
Hello everybody, sorry for the slight delay there.
Sorry about the delay, folks.
We're going to start with JD from Sky Sports News. Thank you.
Right, good afternoon. I hope you're well as always.
Thank you, JD.
I think we should just probably start with the team news. I know it's been a while, so just the fitness of your boys going into Monday night.
Well, we've got a lot of players back, funnily enough, which is good news. Jeff Schlupp was training again with us, as is Mamadou Sakho. Even James Tompkins is out there training. So, in fact, this is a bigger group as we've had training for a long time. We're still missing James MacArthur. He's still having treatment. Gary Cahill hasn't trained for the last 2 or 3 days. He's nursing a minor problem, but we're hoping that he'll recover from that by the time Monday comes around. Connor Wickham is out on the training field, but not training with the squad as yet, as also applies to Nathan Ferguson. I think that's about it. I mean, to be honest, we've had so many in the past in the treatment room. It seems quite strange now that I can name them so quickly off the top of my head.
And it's always a good sign when the boys are recovering from injury, of course. But Roy, the last 72 hours in terms of football, I don't think I've ever seen such a turnaround in such an impactful period of time. The chairman, Steve Harris, has been very open and honest about the development of the ESL and how he thought it was a coup and stealing football away from fans, as well as a bunch of other strong rotations. I just wanted to understand your rotation and how you felt about the last 48 hours and 72 hours developments.
Well, I think I've been as shocked as everybody within the game of football, is disappointed really to see what Steve and Gary Neville and a lot of other people have described as some sort of coup, which would have been obviously designed at putting at great risk people's ability to qualify for the very lucrative Champions League just on the basis of how rich they were or how well they've done in the past. So of course I'm 100% behind everything that's gone on and been done. I take my hats off really. I'll take my hat off to the people who really have gone out onto the front line. You've mentioned our chairman Steve Parish. You've mentioned Gary Neville, or at least I have, and John Barnes I saw speaking yesterday. Lots of people who've come out really and said some very, very intelligent things, I think. And most importantly of all, for me, the best thing that's happened has been the fan revolt. You know, because you could argue that, you know, some of the fans of these top clubs might have been quite happy to say, OK, we're with you on this one. We're quite happy to make certain we never have to worry about the last game of the season and are we going to qualify for the Champions League or the Europa League, because our place is guaranteed. The fact that really the fans, I think as Steve put it, voted for the right to lose, I think that's probably the most important thing of all. And also they've shown their strength, because these days when clubs no longer depend to quite the same extent on the money coming through the turnstile, because there's so much money coming from sponsorship and broadcasting, I think it's great for me to see that really it's still the fans that we're playing for. It's still the fans that matter the most, and it's still the fans who can bring about such a radical change in a situation which looked as if it was going to be a very difficult one to change, because I think the cynics in the world of football would have been thinking, well, they'll let the storm blow over and then this will happen and we will have to accept that our game is going to change enormously from the game that we've always known and loved.
Football being such a large part of your life, such a long duration of your life as well, is there still an underlying fear that there is going to be this concept redeveloped, especially when you talk about, as you said, the integrity of the game and the competitiveness more than anything else?
Well, I think the attempt, if you like, to bring that about has taken a huge blow and a huge knock back, because I think it will be a while before the next group of owners come forward and say, I've got a good idea, why don't we form a league where we can't be relegated and where we get all the money and you others can get on with your league and, you know, enjoy that as best you can, because we won't be there to piff up, if you like, some of the football that you're likely to be playing. I think it's going to take a long while. You can never say never, of course. But my major hope, I guess, is that it will lead to some sort of reform. It will lead to people looking more closely into how football is run, not just at National League level, but certainly at European League level. And if there are errors, as people are suggesting, or things that perhaps need to be corrected in the way that UEFA are managing our European game, if there are things to be sorted out there, I hope that this will be the catalyst which gets them sorted out. And most importantly of all, I think it will be a foolish club owner and a foolish UEFA executive who underestimates the power of the people, the power of the fans for the game they love, and what they think is important for them to see. And what they obviously want to see is teams that can get into the Champions League, unlikely though it might be. We didn't expect to see Leicester City win the Premier League. We didn't expect them then to be in the Champions League before they won the league. At the start of that season, if I remember correctly, they were pretty low odds to get anywhere near the top four in the Premier League, and they won it, and quite rightly took their Champions League place. That's what people want to see. It might be a long shot for a lot of teams in the Premier League, but it's good that that shot exists for us, and we can go for it and hope and dream that one day it won't just be Manchester City and Manchester United and Chelsea playing in top European games. It will be the likes of us, and I can relate, of course, to that because I was able to enjoy that type of experience and enjoy that type of dream come true, if you like, with Fulham in the Europa League.
I remember it too fondly as well. I think one more point just on this. Were you shocked at all at the unity of the fans and the unison in terms of their collaboration to say football was for them and not wanting this ESL, as they said?
It's a very good question. I don't know if the adjective is right. I mean, I don't know if I was shocked or surprised, really. I was just immensely pleased and appreciative, really, of the efforts that they made. To see all those people outside of Chelsea's ground, protesting, to see the banners being put up at Anfield, all of those things, which were obviously things people had to do quite quickly to mobilise that type of support and to organise that type of protest. I was very pleasantly surprised that they've been able to do it. Whether I'm shocked at the power of the fans, I don't know that I am. I don't know that I've ever underestimated the power of the fans. I don't know that. I think that I've always tried, at least, to realise that although you're working with a group of footballers who are the important people in a football club, you're working for a group of owners who are your employers and whom you have to satisfy. I don't think I've ever actually dismissed the realisation that it's the however many thousand that come to the stadium to watch us, however many thousands more that can't get to the stadium but still support the clubs. The letters you get from people who are quite old, who don't come to football anymore and perhaps haven't come to football for many years, but still the first thing they do is to look for the club's result of the weekend and be satisfied and happy if the club's won and disappointed if the club's lost. It's part and part of our fabric. That fabric, I thought, was in danger of being torn apart to some extent by the proposal to start off with the European League, which would have dismissed so many opportunities for so many other clubs, not just in England, but all over Europe. And I'm just delighted that the fans have played such a major part in bringing this about. And also, I must say, there's a lot of people, and we've talked about Steve, we talked about Gary Neville, I think for Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola to come out, and the players who've come out and said what they've got to say. Very, very strong messages from very, very important people. And all this, I think, has helped along the way to avert something which I and everybody else in football thinks would not have been a good idea at all.
Right, I don't just want to focus on the things that's happened in the past in football. I also want to focus on some of the things that's happening potentially in the future. Just an update in terms of some of your squad. I know there's a lot of players that are potentially out of contract in the summer. Do you have any updates in terms of some of those first team players, in terms of those negotiations?
No, Doug is still dealing with that matter. He's in contact, I know, with all of the players and their agents. They're discussing, the future and how it should look. So I'm more than happy to leave that to him. And I don't, unfortunately, have any specific news I can give you. And
Roy, I have to ask you about your future as well.
No specific news there either for the moment. I'll keep that specific news until a later date as well.
Appreciate it as always, Roy.
Good, thanks.
Thanks, JD. We'll go to Rebecca Collins of PLP.
Hi, Roy.
Hello, Rebecca. Yeah, hello, Rebecca.
We've got 6 games left in the Premier League. You're 13th in the table. How much pressure are you still feeling from the teams underneath you?
Yeah, we've got 7 games actually. We've played one less, so we've got a very hectic period to look forward to after the match on Monday. Pardon me, which will be our 32nd game. The next 6 are going to be played in very short succession. Yeah, we feel pressure from the teams below us because we've been pretty much in this middle of the table position right the way through this year. We haven't been in the relegation zone as such, and most of the time we've been pretty much where we are now, maybe even a position or 2 above that. But we are aware that the teams below us are good teams and they're picking up points like we knew they always would. So we're pretty much aware that if we want to maintain this position, which we definitely do want to maintain, we've got to keep those teams at bay, and there's only one way we're going to do that, and that's by increasing our points tally.
Roy, you were disappointed with your squad's performance against Chelsea. It will nearly be 2 weeks since your last Premier League game. Have you managed to iron out those issues in training over that time?
Well, there were no issues. I mean, the fact is we didn't play as well as we would like to have played, but of course we came across a very, very strong Chelsea team. They really hit top form on the day and played in a way that we found hard to contain. But it wasn't a question of, right, now I've got to get back to the training ground and sort all of this out. Of course, there are always things in every game that you would hope to see done better, and there are always areas that you want to work on the training field, but it wasn't anywhere near a case of this is a disaster, we've got to tear everything up and start again. It was a question really of making certain we realised what we could have done better, and still to some extent reflect upon the fact we were a little bit unlucky to catch Chelsea in such a wonderful vein of form, which they haven't always been able to reproduce in the league games afterwards.
You take on Leicester City on Monday night, a team 3rd in the Premier League table and through to the FA Cup final. What have you made of their season?
It's been very, very good. Very good. But I mean, this brings me on really to what I was talking to JD about. It's nice for us to have the right to play against the team that's 3rd in the table, and we'll follow that up by playing the champions of England elect on the Saturday. They're tough games. We know that we're going to be unbelievably stretched to give the sort of performances we would like to give, and in particular even more stretched to make certain we can come out of the games with a positive result. But the beauty is we've got the right to go there and try. We've got the right to do our best and to put our best foot forward. We've got the right to dream that we will be the team that topples first Leicester and then Manchester City. I don't think people will be racing out to put their life savings on it happening, but it's nice to know that possibility exists, and we believe from our past experiences that if we do produce our best football and we do work hard, we are capable of getting results even against the Man Cities and Leicesters of the world.
And Wilfried Zaha was the player that scored the goal against Leicester last time in the reverse fixture. He hasn't scored in 6 games, so are you hoping he'll get on the score sheet on Monday night?
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, but Wilf is working very hard at his game in that respect. For a long period of time now, he's been anxious to add goals to his game. 1 or 2 games we played recently, in particular the Chelsea game, we weren't enough times in and around their penalty area to give him the opportunities he perhaps would have liked. But I still believe that with Wilf, we've got more goals to come from him, and He's got 7 games to add to his tally, and that's what he'll be trying to do.
Since the last press conference, Tariq Mitchell has signed a new contract at Palace. How excited are you for the rest of his journey at the club?
Oh, I'm very excited. I think he's got all the qualities that we're looking for. I mean, we were blessed with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think that the club is blessed to have Tariq as well. I think he's got a lot of qualities that are going to be needed to make him into a top-class Premiership player. Experience has to be earned. You can't give people experience. The only way you can get it is by getting out onto the field and playing, but he'll get lots of opportunities, and I believe he will be a player that will serve the club extremely well for years to come.
That's everything from me, Roy. Good luck for Monday night.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Alex now.
Hi, Roy.
Alex?
If I could just ask you another Super League question. You've managed 2 of the clubs who are in the 12 who are going to break away. Can you understand why they were going to do it? And then on the flip side, the strength of the feeling of the fans against it?
Well, I suppose everybody understands the reason why the clubs wanted to do it. I think, there's not been too much doubt in that area. I think the clubs that were going to break away, big clubs, big name clubs, rich clubs with very important and wealthy owners, I think they were going to break away because they wanted to take away, if you like, the jeopardy of maybe not qualifying for the most important tournaments and to ensure that their place, if you like, to play the important Champions League games was always going to be there. And I think the fans have been such an important part in making clear that, it's not just Champions League football, it's not just Premier League football, it's about football, it's about what football means to us, what our club means to us, how we want to feel about our club. And I think that's very, very important, because it could have been very easy, I think, for some of the fans of these top clubs to sit back and think, well, this is not a bad idea, I'm only going to be watching my team in future play against these other 14 or 15 top European clubs, and I'm going to see the best football on my doorstep. But they didn't want that. They wanted to continue with the system that we have, whereby their club, first of all, has to do well in its national league, and then earn the right to be one of the teams that is awarded, if you like, with a place in European competition. And I think that's a fantastic accolade, if you like, that one should pay to the fans, because there's no doubt that their efforts and the efforts of a lot of people within the game that we've talked about, people like my own chairman Steve Parish, but also the pundits, the managers and players who've spoken out, all of these people have said, in my opinion, the right things. And I can only take my hat off and wish that I could have expressed sometimes as well and as eloquently as they have what was wrong with this idea and what is so good about the fact that the idea has now been knocked back.
Thanks, Roy.
Pleasure.
Just looking ahead to Monday, it's been a bit of a break between your last game and this one, and then before that you had a long break between the Chelsea match. Has it felt a bit stop-start? And I know there's going to be a hectic end to the end of the season, but will that help with the players coming back? Yeah,
it's good that we've got the players coming back. That's very, very important that we've got going to have a good squad to deal with it, because when we started Project Restart, we didn't have that, and it cost us quite dear at the time. So that's good in that respect. It has been a strange time. I've not enjoyed it. I'd have much preferred that we hadn't had the cancellations of the matches that we had, and it's given us extra training time, which, to be frank, we need less than the joy of competition. But that will all stop on Monday, and then the next time I speak to you, I'll probably be complaining that we've not had enough time on the training field. That's the way life goes. One's never satisfied.
That's great. Thank you. Good luck Monday.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll go to Ian Talk Sport.
Hi Roy, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks Ian. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. A few Super League questions, I'm afraid. First of all, has this week shown that football is more about greed, or has it shown that football is the sport?
Well, I don't wish to go down the greed route particularly. I understand that people, are suggesting that was the major reason for the ESL, but I don't know enough about the reasoning behind the 12 clubs initially, whether greed was their motive or whether there was something else. But I do know that it said an awful lot about support and the fact that a suggestion which I think most people in football have already come out quite strongly and clearly said is not a good idea. It's not something we want. In particular, our fans. When I say our fans, I don't just mean Crystal Palace fans. I mean football fans. They've certainly made it clear. We don't want this type of cartel. We don't want the same teams playing all the time for the glittering prizes. We want to fight for the right to play for that glittering prize, and I think that it's a red letter day, if you like, for football in that respect. The people have stood up and made it very clear what they think about the right to dream and the right to lose games even, because it's part and parcel of what football is to us who love the game. So I think the next question now is going to be what longer term effects this mobilisation, if you like, of support and strength from the fans and the people who, love the game, what reform that can perhaps bring about, and what things they can correct that are perhaps not right at the top level of the game already, what they can do to maybe make some changes there, because it's pretty obvious that with this ESL suggestion on the table and looking at one stage as if it might go ahead, the fact that people have said this is wrong, this is not what we want, this is totally against everything we believe in, it might be the moment for the football authorities, UEFA, FIFA, Premier League, all the national leagues around the Europe to start looking and say, right, well, what is important to us? What do our fans want? We're playing for the fans. They're the ones who are buying the tickets. They're the ones buying the rights to the broadcasters to watch the games. What do they want? What's their idea of a fair and proper way of running football? So that for me has been the biggest thing to come out of it, and the most satisfying thing to come out of it, if any good's to come out of it at all.
Off the back of that part of the pun, if it was an own goal then the big teams, do you think now, very much like in Germany and other places around Europe, big clubs, all clubs in this country should have fans on the ball? Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that I'm sure will be discussed. There's no doubt that when I knew already about the situation, but I don't know, it was common knowledge that in the Bundesliga there's always 50 of almost 51%, or it's 50% plus one, I think, have to be in agreement, and that percentage there is a fan-based one, so it can affect, if you like, the decisions of the major shareholders. I think that's a subject which has now been put on the table and will be debated further. There's no question about it. But I think in most clubs, to be fair, the fans and the fan base, the supporters clubs, they are taken into consideration. They do have a direct line to the ear of the chairman and the owner, for example. So it's not as if it just doesn't exist at all. But
in this country, Roy, not being funny, the Man United fans have never wanted the Glazers to be in charge. The Arsenal fans have never wanted Stan Kroenke to be in charge. They don't seem to have a direct line to be able to tell them that they're not wanted in their club.
No, but that's a question, of course, if the clubs come up for sale, I suppose, then you're in another ballpark here now. If you're going to suggest perhaps that every time a club is going to change ownership, it should be decided by the fans, that's a point that could be made, and who knows, maybe you could even put forward the argument that that's how it should be. But I think that will be a little bit more difficult, because the fans, and unfortunately the fans at the level of football in this country, even outside the Premiership, if you go down even into the first and second division, the fans don't have the sort of money to buy those clubs. That's the problem. They need owners. They need people who are going to buy the club and run the club for them. And the most they can then hope for, I guess, is to have a clear line to those people to make their feelings felt, or make sure their feelings are taken into consideration. But you might be going one step further to suggest that they should be involved in the buying of clubs and who should buy the clubs, because I don't think that they'll ever have the money to do that. It has happened, of course, in lower leagues.
There's two more questions. First of all, do you think the top six clubs should be punished in some way? I mean, how are clubs like Crystal Palace going to trust, say, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, Man City, in the future going forward, when you know that they were conspiring behind the backs to maybe set up this time now?
Well, you're I mean, because these clubs have existed for 110, 120 years. You know, you've got to separate the clubs and the person who at the time is maybe making decisions for the clubs. You can't suddenly suggest that those six clubs are bad clubs and are not clubs who have a very valuable part to play in our football just because someone at the club this moment in time has made the decision which has proven to be a wrong decision and which has caused them some grief. And I think it's good that the people who made those decisions have reneged now upon that decision and reversed their thoughts on the subject. They've gone out and they've apologised, and I don't think there's any reason whatsoever to suggest that their club should be particularly punished.
And finally, you've done a great job again this season keeping Palace in the Premier League. Going to the cup final this Leicester on Monday. I'm going to be blunt with it. Will it be your last trip to the King Power?
Oh, you never know. We'll wait and see. Who knows?
No, I'm just interested, Roy, because I mean, if it is, I'll ask you one question. If it isn't, I'll ask you another question.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid I'm not really prepared at the moment to reveal my innermost thoughts on that subject, but I will do one day.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy it anyway. Do you
Thanks.
enjoy your locking horns with Brendan Rodgers? That's the question.
Yes, I enjoy locking horns with all the managers in the Premier League because it's a great place to be in the Premier League, and as you alluded to, we're quite happy and even somewhat proud that we're still there, going into a ninth season now consecutively. It's not easy, because we aren't in that fortunate group at the top that can spread money around as they are able to do because they've got the resources. But I think we've made the most of our resources, and for the best part, we're capable of giving all the teams around us a good game, and that's going to be our aim on Monday night when we go to Leicester, irrespective of who's the opposing manager.
Privilege as always, Roy.
Thanks. The same.